Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about Lvlup Expo 2025. And I gotta say, prior to the top 24 of this event, it was the most insane thing that I have ever seen. The amount of S tier talent that ended up getting 25th or 33rd at this event is ridiculous, and a majority of the video probably is going to be spent within that area. But for our top 16 finishers, you got Ice Knight, Jazo, Luis, and Cola in 13th, Wrath, Raru, Sonics, and Syrup in 9th, Shiny Mark and MK Leo in 7th, Kiorash and Spargo in 5th, Light in 4th, Zomba in 3rd, Onin in 2nd, and winning the entire thing was Doramigi. So, as I said, there's a lot of upsets at this event, and we're just going to kind of be working our way up from top to bottom, starting off with the biggest upsets in our 49th place finishers. You're going to have Buzz and Snow both finishing there, respectively. For Snow, he's going to get upset by Elijahman in the winner's side 3-1, and you got to give credit there to Elijahman. I think he's honestly a player that does not get his flowers. He's really, really good. One of the best Shulk players in the world, definitely the best Shulk player in North America. But that matchup is really good for Shulk. Maybe even Mario's worst matchup. It's just so incredibly difficult to get in against that super massive sword. Shulk's able to escape the combos as well with some of his busters. So it makes sense that Elijahman wins that one, but it doesn't make it any less impressive. Snow is still one of the best players in the world. After that, he gets a 3-0 win over Synergy, which is pretty nice. And then he loses 3-0 to Cola, which is a pretty bad draw, honestly, if you're Snow. He's only played Cola once before. Does end up losing that set 3-0. Exact same thing this time around. I don't think that Mario does horrible against Roy necessarily. You are going to have to hit with that inner point of the sword, but at the end of the day, it is still a sword that you are hitting with, and Snow does fall for 49th. Honestly, I think this is just a really unlucky bracket for Snow. Getting a Shulk in winner side and then Cola in the loser side is never too fun, and I definitely expect him to bounce back for Kagaribi. Then you're going to have Buzz. He's going to get upset by Kiorash in the winner side, which is, I don't know really much about the Rosalina-Luigi matchup. I feel like it would be a little bit closer to even just because Luma would be so good at intercepting. You also be able to get some pretty solid edge guards on Luigi as well with that forward air and the down air being as disjointed as they are. But you're also going to be absolute combo food for Luigi, and I'm pretty sure the latter was why Kirash ended up winning that set 3-1. You do have Buzz then getting a Game 5 win over Vendetta, but he unfortunately runs into Zachary right after, ends up losing that one 3-0. Rob versus Rosalina. So 49th for Buzz, definitely a little bit tough. You lost to Zachary in loser side, and then the guy who had the run of the tournament in the winner side. So it's definitely not the end of the world. And you had Buzz going on Twitter saying that he doesn't think that Rosalina can do it in the current meta. And to be honest with you, I don't think Rosalina could do it in the past meta. He was just kind of doing it anyway. So very interested to see what Buzz does, if he just kind of stops competing as much because his character that he really likes doesn't believe that can do it anymore, or if he actually tries to pivot to the Min, to the Olimar more. So interested to see what Buzz does. 49th is unfortunate for him, but considering who he lost to, it's not the end of the world. On to 33rd, which is where we got a majority of the insane upsets at this event. You're going to have Akola, Mia, Tweak, and Zachary all finishing in 33rd, as well as other people, of course. Shouts to Kai Mystic reading 33rd with Mario. But let's talk about Zachary first. He's going to end up getting upset by Ludo in the winner's side, who also got 33rd, so shouts to him for that one. He's got a lot of crazy wins under his belt randomly. It's 3-1 in Ludo's favor, though. Mario against Rob. Then a Game 5 win for Zachary. Rob against Min Min for Chag. Then it's a 3-0 for him against Buzz. Once again with the Rob. Then he loses a Game 5 with Pit and Dark Pit up against Ouch. So 33rd for Zachary, definitely not what he was wanting to see at this event, but I do like that he's using the Rob more actively. And it's not like the Rob didn't exist prior to this event. He was obviously ingraining it more and more into his gameplay every tournament that he went to. But if we can get Zachary to the point where he's just fully counterpicking between Pit and Rob, maybe even throws the Joker in there as well, I think that this guy could return to that World Slayer status that he held before, that he honestly still kind of holds in my mind. Whenever I see Zachary at an event, it's okay, this guy could absolutely just top 8 it at any second. And even though it doesn't end up going that way at this event, again, I like the signs that he's using both Rob and Pit very fluidly in the matches. I think that's just a really good sign for the future. You're also going to have Tweak finishing in 33rd. He's going to end up beating Lammers 3-0, but then fight another Mii Gunner in Capitancito, and that is the Mii Gunner. Ends up losing that one in a Game 5. Massive props to Capitancito for getting that upset there. That is just super, super impressive. And then once in the loser side, Tweak immediately ends up bowing out to Cola. And I don't believe he's actually played Cola in quite some time. And for Cole to be able to get that win has got to feel super good because you did have Tweak beating him in the last 2 encounters. The last time they played was at the Throne 2, by the way. Tweak ends up winning that one, so Cole gets his revenge after a little bit of a wait. Definitely unfortunate for Tweak, not the placement that he wanted. But again, his losses aren't horrible at the end of the day. Cole is a very good player, ends up doing well at this event. Capitancito isn't what you wanted to see, but honestly, if Capitancito like travels this season, or not this season, this year, he is going to be a player that I think is ranked fairly high, could absolutely get himself in the top 100, maybe even the top 50 if he's like really, really grinding and going to stuff. So that loss for Tweak might not be as bad as it seems right now, but definitely an underperformance for him. So not only do you have Tweak and Zachary finishing in 33rd, but you also have Mia and Akola getting 33rd at this event. For Mia, he's going to end up losing to Omega in the winner side in a 3-1, and then Mars in the loser side. And honestly, really, really unlucky bracket for Mia. I do think that Joker does pretty well against Game Watch. Even at this weekend, he had Mia losing to MK Leo at the pre-local. So maybe a combination of Mia not doing the best against Joker and the character also doing pretty good against his character. And then in the loser side, running into Mars, I think is like maybe Mia's demon in bracket. Like, I think Mars would actually be the last person that he wants to run into, because Zerosuit does amazing against both Steve and especially up against Game Watch. I don't believe he's ever taken a set off of Mars. So they've only played twice, but it's just such a difficult opponent for him to get. Zerosuit just perfectly counters his roster, and this is the Zerosuit player. So definitely a little bit unfortunate for Mia running into Mars in the loser side. And then massive props to Omega in the winner side. I mean, this guy has been playing amazingly lately. We'll get to him in just a little bit. I do want to give him a little credit than I am now, but really nice upset from Omega. 33rd from Mia, definitely not the placement that he was wanting to see. Absolutely is going to hurt his chances of being the best player in the world, and it would hurt them a lot more if the other frontrunner, Akola, didn't get 33rd right next to him. He does pick up a win on Oxine, but ends up losing to Karama 3-1 in the winner's side, and then in Game 5 to Skitty the Pooh, who made a crazy comeback on that last stock. That was absolutely ridiculous. Massive props to him for that one. But for Akola, I mean, I can't even sugarcoat it. This is a massive underperformance for him. To get double eliminated by Mario is just not something that should be happening for like the best Steve player, the potential best Steve player in the world. Now it's actually something that we have to talk about, because Mario doesn't have zero tools in the matchup. Like, I think Cape is something that is pretty strong. Back air is something that could be good. You know, maybe you can get some good up smashes out of shield with Steve pressuring you, but that's it. Like, Steve is so good at walling Mario, so good at keeping him in the disadvantage. Comboing him is super free. Neutral is literally just impossible because of the blocks. This is just Akola not playing the matchup correctly, giving them too many greedy minecarts so they can actually hit an up air or a neutral air. Mario needs Steve to mess up in order for him to get an opportunity, and I think Akola was just being way too willy-nilly in these matchups. He's got to play a lot more discipline if he wants to beat players. Like, people at this point are not going to just roll over to the easy Steve stuff, even if they're not like the best of the best, a top 10 player. Your top 100 players, your top 200 players, they are going to be amazing at the Steve matchup. You cannot be going for the free stuff anymore. You need to be thinking about what you're doing, and I do think that's definitely what bit Akola in the butt here, just kind of assuming that he's got this one. It's Mario, it's an easy matchup. I shouldn't be too worried. Just do your normal flowcharts and it'll have to work out, but it doesn't work out. He doesn't adapt fast enough, and he ends up getting a 33rd. Do I think Akola's going to bounce back for kagaribi? I mean, yeah, absolutely. I would be shocked if this guy didn't get top 8. Same thing for Mia as well, but this is definitely not the placement that you wanted to see. Also, the reason I'm being so dramatic about this is because prior to this, Akola's lowest placement was 9th. This is the first time he's ever gotten a double-digit placement. So yeah, it's a pretty big deal. On to our 25th place finishers. And really quickly, I'm just going to name Ouch, Monty, Shattuck, Cosmos, Mars. I think all of those are players that could top 8 any event that they go to, but aren't top 8 seeds, if that makes sense. They are just players that you never want to see in your bracket path, can absolutely lead to that upset. And especially recently, I mean, you got to give credit to Ouch and Monty. They have been on their A game. Cosmos as well has a really solid run. I forget the event off the top of my head. I'll pull it up right here, but he had a really solid run recently at a pretty important event. It was Best of the West. He ends up getting 2nd place. They're having a crazy run, only losing to Ouch, taking a set off of Spargo. Mars obviously gets his win on Mia at this event, which is super impressive. You're going to have Monty getting 2 top 8s at his most recent events. Shattuck has taken a bit of a step back from competition, but we all know how legit this guy is. And then finally, Ouch, of course, has just been killing it recently. Gets that win at Best of the West Climb Hazard, and I think he is going to keep up the momentum going into Kagaribi. I don't know if all 5 of these guys are going to Kagaribi. I don't think that Mars is, but I do believe the other 4 are, and I'm really excited to see how they perform. I think 25th is a placement that they could absolutely hit at that event, or even potentially go further into the bracket. It might be a little harder for Monty just because they have Mia over there. They're going to be ready for that game watch, but Monty does not play the character in the same style that Mia does. So very, very interested to see how those players do. Let's talk about the 25th players, though, where I actually just want to talk about their runs, because you're going to have Skinny the Pooh, Base Mage, and D tier all finishing in 25th. Starting off with Skinny the Pooh, he ends up losing to Atata really early on, like before Best of 5 even starts, and then in a row beats Ripka, Cube, this is where Best of 5 starts, Atomic, Jeja, and Akola in that Game 5. Ridiculous, before losing to MK Leo. You know, he passes Mario Curse onto Akola. So that's a crazy losers run from Skinny the Pooh with an upset factor over 12 on Akola. I don't know if I've ever seen an upset factor that high. Maybe I've seen one get to 13, but 12 is like ridiculous. The highest one of this event. You're going to have D tier in 35th or 35th in 25th. He's going to end up losing to Base Mage in the winner side. Gets a win over Pharaoh before that. I didn't even see that. And then beats Von Gola, Hyper Kirby, and Beastly before losing to Cola, but manages to take Cola Game 5 all solo Ice Climbers. And honestly, anytime I see an Ice Climber player go for a run, I gotta shut him up. I really like this character. He's like my guilty pleasure. And then finally, in 25th, you are going to have Base Mage, who takes out the aforementioned D tier before losing to Sparko. Definitely an unlucky draw there. It is Jake Lee Puffy Ken Edgeguard Cloud, but it's also Sparko. Gets a 3-1 win over Death Spade, but then ends up losing 3-0 to Mute. So D tier and Base Mage kind of tied for the low tier hero run of this event. Crazy upset from Skinny the Pooh. I mean, that was absolutely ridiculous. And then the other 4 players that I mentioned, plus Mars, definitely got to look out for those guys when it comes to Kagaribi. I think Base Mage is going to Kagaribi as well, and he could absolutely cause some damage there. So yeah, really, really exciting. 25th place, looking good. On to 17th place, and we're just going to go through these players rapid fire style. You got Elijah Min with a 3-1 win over Snow and a 3-1 win over MFA, and apparently it was MFA's Captain Falcon. I didn't even know they had a Captain Falcon, but regardless, Elijah Min wins, then loses 3-1 to Spargo, loses 3-0 to Louise. This is probably the best Shulkman placement that we have of the year. Please correct me on that if I am wrong, and honestly, it might not get beat, because it's not like Shulk players are absolutely farming it right now, especially at a P-tier event of all places. So big shots to Elijah Min for that one. You got Capitan Cito finishing in 17th place with 2 massive wins over Mutace and Tweak, both going to Game 5, both of them being victorious. Then he ends up losing 3-1 to Doramigi, the winner of the event, and 3-0 to Wrath, which is probably just like a different style of Sonic that he really was not ready for, but still massive wins for Capitan Cito. Also probably the best speed gunner run of the year so far. You're going to have Omega finishing in 17th place with 2 wins over Riddles and Mia. Again, absolutely massive. Only loses to Light and Ice Knight. And Omega has been on such a massive uptick recently. I do think that this guy has what it takes to potentially win a major event before the end of Smash Ultimate. If he continues on this path, he's got a very bright future ahead of him. He's just so talented. You're going to have Karama finishing in 17th place. He's got that win over Charlie D, who got an upset over Paul Kage. Shouts to him for that one. Then that 3-1 win over Akola. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. It's not the first time Karama has taken out a prior first seed, or not first, I guess Akola was the first seed, but ranked 1 player in the world. MK Leo Frostbite does it at this event, but, you know, unlike Frostbite, Akola obviously doesn't make that rebound. Not talking about Akola, though. Back to Karama. He ends up losing his next Steve set up against Onin, and then loses 3-0 to Akola. And this is not the first time that we've had this happen recently, where Akola ends up losing to a player, and then either Onin or Syrup ends up getting the run back. I believe you had Ouch doing it at, I don't know why I can't remember the event at the top of my head. I'll put it on the screen right now. But you're going to have players beating Akola and then losing to a different seed, which I think really shows just the multitude of ways that you are able to play this character. And then running into Akola, not the worst luck in the world. Like, I do think that Roy Mario isn't unwinnable by any means, but it is still Mario fighting up against a sword character. I do think Akola is playing pretty good at this event. So 17th place for Grama, pretty solid, and obviously really solid with that Akola win. It was Battle of DC. That was the event I was thinking of, where Akola ends up losing to Ouch, and then Ouch ends up getting beat by Sarah. But back to this bracket, you have Riddles finishing in 17th place. He gets upset Game 5 by Omega, like I mentioned, but then makes a really solid losers run, beating Shady 3-0, FD 3-1, Chase 3-1 against the Steve, and then Monty Game 5, which is really impressive. As I already established, Monty's been killing it recently, and then ends up losing to actually Jazzo in a 3-1. We'll talk about Jazzo in just a little bit here. But 17th place for Riddles, it's like a solid placement. He technically does overperform his seed because he was like the 29th seed, but I do think that Riddles is always one of those players that he could top 8 in the event. He's just so explosive, the best parry player in the world. And of course, that Kazuya is still very good, but at this point, it is definitely predominantly Terra, and I do think that's the better choice for this meta. There's just a lot of characters that I think have the possibility to wall out Kazuya, where that's a lot more difficult to do against Terry. But again, Kazuya just kills you in one hit, so it's always going to be one of those debates. Moving on, though, good run from Riddles. You're going to have Mudace finishing in 17th place. He also ends up getting upset very early on by another 17th place finisher in Capitan Cito. Then he ends up getting a 3-0 over Toru, 3-0 over Lammers, 3-2 over MFA, which was, again, with the Captain Falcon. I feel like that's probably a misreport, but maybe not. 3-0 over Base Mage, and then ends up losing 3-0 to Syrup, which is definitely a tough draw. Mudace used to be like that guy up against Steve, but I think Steve players have just kind of figured out how to play that Peach matchup. When you know that the character, the best microspacing character in the game, wants to microspace your minecarts or your run-in dash attacks, run-in back airs, you kind of just stop doing them. And then it's that real big issue for Peach where she doesn't have an amazing approach against Steve. Like, yeah, she can break the blocks with the forwarder, but then she's putting herself in a punished position. And Steve hits a lot harder than Peach. Well, Peach hits very hard, let's not get twisted, but her hitting hard is a lot more situational. Whereas for Steve, he just hits you once and you are going for a ride. So Mudace ends up losing that one. You're going to have Glutony finishing in 17th place. He's got a 3-0 over Marvelous Marco, 3-0 over Cosmos. Then he ends up losing 3-0 to Kirash. We'll talk about that when we talk about Kirash. And then Game 5 to MK Leo. Absolute giga banger of a set. Just two amazing players facing off against each other that played a ton of times before. And Leo just happened to come out on top this time around. And then finally in 17th place, you are going to have Shuton. He's got a 3-1 win over Apple Reviewer. Ends up getting upset by Jazo in Olimar against Ken. 3-1, or 3-0 I should say, over Kai Mystic. 3-1 over Ouch, and then runs into Sonics. Ends up losing that one. Game 5. And it's not like Shuton versus Sonics is a bad draw for him specifically. It's actually a pretty decent draw for him. He does well there in the past, but at the end of the day, it is still Sonics. That's never a guy that I would want to run into in my bracket path. So 17th place for Shuton. Definitely not a horrible placement. Got a couple solid wins there along the way. For Gluto as well, I kind of just skipped over him being the Battle of BC winner coming into this event. 17th place, yes, it is an underperformance. It's an underperformance for both of these guys, but it's also still 17th place at a P-tier event. They both pick up at least a solid win along the way, so it's not the end of the world. And again, going into Kagaribi, I think they should be fine. Moving on to 13th place, you're going to have Ice Knight and Jazo. Starting off with Ice Knight, he is going to have the loser's run of the event, probably winning 7 sets in a row after losing to Marvelous Marco in the winner's side. He beats Sunny, Guts, Loaf, Colorado, Ludo, Cosmos, and Omega before falling to Sonics, and he does this all with solo Greninja. Well, he tries Roy in that set against Sonics, but aside from that, it is all Greninja at this event, and this is probably going to be the best Greninja event that we have this year, unless Tarek already did really well at one of the European events that I'm just completely misremembering it, or he pops off later in the year, maybe Suna as well, he's pretty good, but 13th place at a P-tier event is already very, very impressive, and Greninja is by no means a bad character, but he's not one of those characters. He's not like an S-tier character. He's not going to be someone that you could pick up and just start finding success with. This is someone that has taken a lot of time in Greninja, character specialized it, and they're being rewarded in this situation. Big props to Ice Knight for the run. And honestly, the other 13th place finisher of Jazo in a very similar spot. Do I think Ken is a bad character? Not necessarily. Definitely a worse character than Greninja, though. And for Jazo to be able to make this run, I really think shows the perseverance and the time that he has put into this character. He's got a 3-0 over Grandmaster, 3-1 win over Shuton, loses 3-0 to Shining Mark, which is the only set that he ends up trying to renew, very likely for the Fireball in that matchup. Ends up winning a 3-1 win over Riddles, and then gets team killed by his Georgia brethren in Wrath. Ends up losing that one 3-1. But Xiao's been on such a massive uptick recently. I want to say it started like around the start or the middle of 2024. Like, obviously he's always been getting better, but that's when I specifically noticed that this guy is getting better steadily. He's getting better. He's not slowing down. He's just keep getting better. And now we're at this point where he's beating players like Shuton. He's beating players like Riddles. I think Jazo has such an incredibly high ceiling, to the point where if he top 8'd even an event like Kagaribi, I don't know if he's necessarily going to Kagaribi, but if he got into the top 8 of that event, yeah, of course it would surprise me, because holy, that would be so impressive. But he can do it. He's taking out the players of that caliber that you would meet at potentially a top 8 qualifier. Someone like a Shuton. He's beaten players like that. So I think Jaws is a really scary player in the meta right now. Absolutely the best can, not a question in my mind. This isn't a low tier run by any means. Same thing with Ice Knight, but these characters are not as good as the characters that they're fighting in this part of the bracket. So to be able to get these wins, to get these upsets, I think is super, super impressive, and just massive props to both of these players. Also in 13th place, you've got Cola and Luis. Starting off with Luis, he's going to end up losing to Sonics in the winner's side, but then beats Captain Crop, Shattuck, and Elijahman all 3-0 before falling to MK Leo in a 3-1. And I got to give Luis his flowers. He's been on such a massive uptick in 2025. Like, even towards the end of last year, he was already starting to get better, but I've just been so impressed by his performance recently. He just doesn't really have any bad placements. Like 25th at Genesis, it's like his worst thing in recent memory prior to Supernova, and then everything else is just solid, consistent placements. After that, we haven't seen him hitting some of the peaks that he was hitting earlier on in Smash Ultimate, but that doesn't mean that he isn't able to hit some of those peaks. I do think that he is slowly but surely returning to the level. It's definitely difficult to do with Palutena in the current meta, but nothing is impossible, especially when you're as mechanically and fundamentally gifted as Luis has. So solid run from him. He should be pretty happy with that. And then Cola, I don't know if he'd be happy with this run, even though he does overperform his seed, but he just feels like a guy with very high standards. He's going to get upset by MFA in the winner's side, and he does try Cloud in that first game, which I absolutely recommend. Really big fan of that. If you have a high level Cloud, you should try it out against the all-one player. Doesn't end up working out though, and then uses Roy in the other games, ends up losing that one. Again, he gets a 3-0 over Krieg, 3-0 over Snow, 3-1 over Tweak, 3-2 over D-Tier, and 3-0 over Karama. So shout out to D-Tier for taking it to game 5, where players like Tweak and Snow could not. Then ends up losing a game 5 of his own to Syrup. Tries the Cloud in that set, but again, does not end up working out. And I think that Cola's Cloud is something that he really needs to just like, I don't know. It's in a really weird spot because I don't think it's necessarily ready for tournaments. Like if you can't use it against MFA and find success, then it is something that you're probably going to need to put into the pocket. And that's no discredit to MFA because they are like an amazing player, but Cloud Olimar is just a matchup that you should be winning. You're so favored there. And I think Cola is going to just need to figure out, does he want to fully invest his time into the Cloud? Does he want this to be a prominent secondary, which I do think would be an amazing choice for him? Or does he want to put all of his eggs into the Roy basket, which is also not a bad idea. I do think it's a little bit tough to solo main Roy just because there are a couple of tricky matchups that can get you off guard, and Cloud complements those really, really well. Cole is a very good player. Cloud fits his playstyle as well. I want him to pick up Cloud. I think Cloud is the correct choice from Cola, but I think if he wants Cloud to be on his roster, he needs to invest more time in it. Just because it's a good matchup, it doesn't really matter at this point, especially at the level of play that he's playing. People are more ready for their good matchup. They're going to know specifically what to do against their hardest characters, so you need to make sure that your Cloud, your secondary, is up to stuff, able to take out the secondaries, or not the secondaries, the mains of people in the matchup that he should be winning. And if it isn't, then it just needs to stay in the lab. You need to put more time into your main character. Obviously, this is just one tournament where the Cloud doesn't end up working out, so I'm being super negative about it. The Cola Cloud is very good, but I want to see him put more time into it so it can be excellent, not just good. On to the 9th place finisher, starting off with Sonics and Wrath. And both of these guys are in contention for the best Sonic player in the world because Sonics has not been going to really anything. He's got a 3rd at Luminosity Madness, 17th at Genesis, and a 1st at Afterburner, with now a 9th place at Lvlup Expo. He picks up wins on Al Soda, Mystery, and Luis. Loses in a 3-0 to Zomba, then beats Shootone in a game 5, which again, he's got to be feeling really nice to get that one. Finally gets his revenge over him. I think Shootone won like 3 sets in a row prior to that. Then he also gets a 3-0 over Ice Knight before losing in a 3-1 against Spargo, specifically Spargo's Roy. And I don't have a ton to say about Sonics at this event. He loses to Zomba and Spargo, which are like 2 of the worst people in the entire world that he can get, because not only do they just play well against him, but their characters also do well against Sonics. Obviously, Spargo's specifically picking a character that does well, but I think Rob has some pretty decent tools against Sonic. You do have that dish showed there. You are able to do some crazy combo projectile stuff. I mean, the way he ended that set last game, I just absolute robbery, prime robbery, honestly. And the amount of times I've seen Sonics do something similar to someone just clipping their jump off stage and then forwarding them over and over again, I honestly can't give him too much sympathy. But ninth place, obviously not the placement that Sonics wanted, but also it's like what he was seeded. He was actually exactly the 9th seed, so this is what was expected from him. And I think going into Kagaribi, he's probably like the biggest question mark for me. I really have no idea how he's going to perform. But Wrath, I think, is also going to Kagaribi. And I've got a bit of a better idea of how Wrath is going to perform because he's been showing up a little more, at least in more major events in 2025, I should say. Because Sonics technically does have 4 events, while Wrath only has 3. But they're all majors. And he gets a 7th at LMBM, 7th at Cav Clash, now a 9th place here. So there's a very real argument for Raph being the best Sonic player of 2025. He's got a 2-0 over Longo, 3-0 over Aiken, loses Game 5 to Light, which is just a really tough draw to get. Then he gets a Game 5 win over Danny to Denny, Game 5 win over Mars, 3-0 over Capitancito, 3-1 over Jazo, and then loses Game 5 to Onan, who was just playing absolutely amazing at this event. So really solid run from Wrath. He's just had an amazing start to this year. This is his worst placement so far, and it's 9th place. He can absolutely cause some super serious damage at Kagaribi, and I'm really interested to see if he can actually take that title of best Sonic player in the world from Sonics. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult if Sonics like starts grinding and showing up to a ton of events. But if Wrath starts grinding and showing up to a ton of events and starts performing the way that he is now, it's a very real possibility. And our other 9th place finishers are going to be Reru and Syrup. Starting off with Reru, he is going to get a 2-0 win over Bubunski, 3-0 over Danny 2 Denny, 3-1 over Monty in Game 5 over Syrup. Then he ends up losing Game 5 to Light, which we'll definitely talk about when we talk about with Light, and then loses 3-0 to MK Leo as well, which I think is a little bit of a tough draw. I do think that Luigi does not do the best against Joker. Joker doesn't have the biggest disjoint, but against Luigi, any disjoint matters. Gun is super strong tool against that character, I think, as well. So this 9th place for Rara, not bad by any means. He was the 12th seed of the event, so technically he's just placing a seed, but you know this guy would have wanted to get himself into the top 8. And one of the top 8 seeds, Syrup, you know, also wanted to get himself into top 8. It feels weird to honestly not see him in here. I think this is the first time in 2025 that you're going to have Syrup not getting himself into top 8 of a major event, which is absolutely ridiculous. It just shows how dominant he's been. In fact, this is the first time Syrup doesn't get top 3 at a major event this year. That is how good this guy has been. Now, he didn't end up going to Genesis, but still, amazing from him. He's going to get a 3-0 over J Mafia, 3-1 over Chase, loses Game 5 to Raider, gets a 3-0 over Mutace, Game 5 win over Cola, and then ends up losing Game 5 to Shiny Mark Ness against Pikachu. And I do think that Syrup is also the best Ness player in the world. I feel like that's something that is kind of swept under the rug because his Steve is so nasty. And one thing in specific that I want to compliment Syrup for is his nil combos, I think, are the best of any of these super high level Steves. And his footstools as well. Like, I don't know who was against specifically, but he hit the most, I think it was against Cola. He hit the most insane tech chase of all time where he up tilted someone on the platform, placed a block underneath, reacted to where they were going, and then footstool anviled them. Absolutely unbelievable. It's stuff like that that makes me believe that Syrup is going to be the best Steve player by the end of 2025. And while this event may not agree with that analysis, 9th place for him is still definitely a very solid placement. And going into Kagaribi, he's looking like a major threat. And we have finally arrived at the top 8. As always, if you've made it this far in the video, you're probably enjoying, so be sure to sub. Use code ProofBlock as well if you've been playing Rivals too. And starting off with our 7th place finishers of MK Leo and Shiny Mark. You're going to have Shiny Mark getting a 3-1 win over Lvlup, a 3-0 win over Ouch. And I think Pikachu Wolf is pretty close to an even matchup, maybe slightly in Pika's favor, but the 3-0 out is just really, really impressive. He's been on his A game recently, so that's a super good feat for Shiny Mark. 3-0 is Jiaozo immediately after that as well, so he's looking amazing up until that top 8 qualifier where he ends up losing in a Game 5 to Kiyorash, which we'll talk about Kiyorash in just a second here. He's playing amazing at this event. Then gets a Game 5 win over Syrup, which is super, super impressive, just considering that I do still think Ness does extremely well against Pikachu. You just have to entirely alter your game plan. And yes, you are advantaged when Ness is off stage. You have really good edge guarding, but in like every other aspect of the game, you have to deal with those Ness disjoints. You have to deal with Side Bandit, which is super annoying. And Pikachu also just explodes against that little child. So for Shiny Mark to be able to get that win over Syrup, I think is really, really impressive. Then he ends up running into his bracket demon of Spargo, ends up losing that one 3-0. That's just a really, really unlucky draw for Shiny Marks. Like the last person that he would want to see. Spargo just reads into how he plays so incredibly well. I also think he plays really good against Pikachu in general, just understanding when that character can take engagements and when you're not really actually at risk. So props to Spargo for that. 7th place for Shiny Mark. Definitely a solid placement. Overperformed his seed, so should be happy with that one. MK Sorry, I got a phone call in that Leo segment, so I'm just going to start it over. Leo's going to get 7th place at this event, and he's going to lose to Onan 3-1 in the winner's side. Beats Captain Crump before that, I should mention. Then beats Apollo Kage 3-1. Skinny the Pru 3-0. Finally gets his revenge 3-2 over Glutsony. He's got to be feeling particularly amazing about that win. Like, yeah, he does beat Gluto in their last encounter, but that was a while ago at this point, and prior to that, it had been dominance for Glutini. So for Leo to know that that wasn't just a fluke, he's playing super well there, to actually be able to get that second win, even though it's game 5, he's got to be feeling amazing about that one. Ends up getting a 3-1 win over Luis, and this is the only time in the entire tournament where the Byleth comes out, really where the Joker isn't out, and I don't know if it's because he just doesn't like that matchup for Joker, if he really likes that matchup for Byleth, I have no clue, but the Byleth comes out against Luis, finds success, 3-0 over Reru as well. Again, you think the Byleth would come out here, I feel like that'd be a great matchup, but the Joker gets the job done, and it's also a good matchup for Joker, as I alluded to earlier, because of the gun, because of the edge guarding. And then once again, 3-1 on it. That is a player that Leo has never beat before. They have a 4-0 record over him, which is just like insanely impressive. Very few people, in fact, I think specifically one person can say they have a 4-0 record over MK Leo. So very solid run from him. Overperforms his seed. Got to be feeling happy about this. I'm really excited about this guy going into kagaribi. I think he could be an absolute wild card and shake up a ton of brackets. Leo's one of those players where his character lineup allows him to really be anyone. There aren't people where you should be hard countering him unless your name is on an I suppose. So I'm just excited to see the damage that this guy is going to do. On to our 5th place finisher, starting off with Kirash, who had the run of his life at this event. Kirash has always been a good player. He's had solid placements at majors before, but he had never gotten higher than 17th place, which he got at Crown the Third for reference. And at this event, he just explodes. 3-1 over Debuzz, 2-0 over Whiskey, I should add, 3-0 over Ludo, 3-0 over Glutini, and then a Game 5 win over Shiny Mark as well, which I cannot understand how impressive that is. Like, Luigi, I think, is favored against Pikachu when it comes to the scrap, because Luigi's favored against, like, pretty much everyone when it comes to the scrap, but your offstage gameplay is still so bad as the Luigi player that to be able to navigate it at all for Kirash, I think, is incredibly impressive. So he gets himself into top 8 through the winner's side. We had a winner's siding top 8 Luigi at this event, and it wasn't Reru. Like, I never would have guessed that. But once in the top 8, he has the misfortune of running into Dormigi, though he does manage to take him to Game 5, which I think is incredibly impressive. Now, Reru also does very well against Dormigi, so maybe that's just like a Dormigi thing. He's not great against Luigi, but I don't know how you couldn't be when that character edgeguards the way that they do. It's just, again, props to the navigation from Kirash off stage, being able to just figure out what he needs to do to get back, and then on hit, this guy is, of course, absolutely absurd. I think his up Bs were absolutely ridiculous. He was going for them way more than I think other Luigi players, where he just take the risk every single time, and it almost always paid off. Like double jump up Bs from Kirash, he was doing way more than I saw any other Luigi player doing, and he was finding a lot of success because of it. So big props to him for that one. But yeah, he loses Dormigi Game 5 and then has the misfortune of running into Onin. So loses to the grand finalists of this event in 2 matchups that are very difficult for Luigi. If you're Kirash, you should be really happy with this run. It is absolutely spectacular. Now, on the other end of 5th place, you're going to have Spargo, who's probably not as happy with his run, but it's not bad by any means. It's obviously amazing. He's got a 3-0 on Hyper Kirby, 3-1 on Base Mage, 3-1 on Elijah Man, ends up losing 3-0 to Dormigi, which does make sense. At the end of the day, it is Cloud versus Min Min. Like, of course, Cloud should be struggling in that matchup. Gets a 3-1 win over Spargo. All Roy in that set. So Roy was the character that he managed to save off, or I guess stave, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but stop Sonics from beating him. He had to go through his roulette. Is it Corrin? Is it Cloud? Is it Aegis? Nope, it's Roy, and the Roy was the correct pick this time around. He gets a 3-0 over Shiny Mark, but in the top 8, as we've established, very good Demon, or just head-to-head for Spargo. And then Light actually takes Spargo out in the losers quarterfinals 3-1. And that's just another example of a really good top player that's played against another really good top player a bunch, just happening to not win their set. It's kind of like I said earlier with MK Leo and Glutini. You don't really know what's going to happen when 2 players like that face off. It really is just who was playing better on that day. And Light was playing really good on the day. We're going to get to him in literally 10 seconds here. But Spargo, solid run from him. Obviously, 5th place isn't like amazing for a player of his standard, but also considering that everyone else who went to this event that's also in contention for first in the world got like 33rd or like 17th or something, I'd say he's pretty happy with this. Next up in 4th place, you're going to have Light, and he is going to be the player that I thought was going to win this event getting into the top 8. Like, prior to top 8 starting, I thought he had it in the bag. He's got a 3-1 win over Send, Game 5 win over Wrath, 3-0 over Omega, and a Game 5 win over Rare. Not only a Game 5, but a reverse 3-0 on the best Luigi in the world. I never in a million years would have predicted that. For him to win this set is already difficult enough. To reverse 3-0 is crazy, and it's because he was getting so much value from his grabs. Light's grabs in this set were unbelievable. He was just using them to position rare wherever he needed them to be, throwing them up, going for up airs, throwing them off stage so he's in a bad position, can't recover. It's just like, it was amazing from like, he played this so well, so patient, didn't force any engagements, waited for Rare to make the mistake because, as I said earlier, Luigi is just going to win pretty much every boxing situation against pretty much every character, because if you just get hit by one of his hitboxes, you're going to get true comboed into something like an up B, something like a back air, something like a down special, but Light managed to avoid all of that, played amazing in this set and got the dub. Huge props to him. Now, unfortunately, beating Luigi does not mean that you won the tournament, and after that, he ends up losing 3-0 to Zomba, and then beats Spargo in a game 4. And both of those sets are just two amazing players that have played each other a ton of times before, and the better player just happened to come out on top that day. But two banger sets, highly recommend that you watch them. Then he ends up losing 3-0 to Onin, and it's been a very long time since Light has managed to take a set off of Onin. Now, to be fair, they played at Scuffle Tour in 2022. Light wins. Then they didn't play until the Luminosity makes big moves in 2025, where you did have Onin winning it, and now they again win it at Lvlup Expo. So 6-0 on Light in 2025. I do think that Onin is the Steve player that plays the most to his opponent's lose condition, or I guess plays the most to not his lose condition, if that makes sense. I'm wording this really poorly, but Onin is very aware of what the opponent needs to do in order to get that win, and their entire game plan is just centered around preventing that. And I think specifically in a matchup like Fox, that works very well. So 4th place for Light, played very good at this event. As I said, that reverse 3 over Rare, I was convinced he was winning the tournament after that, and I'm excited to see how he does at kagaribi. In 3rd place, you're going to have Zomba, and this is also someone that I low-key thought was going to win the event. He was just on a tear in that winner's side. 3-1 over Atomic, Game 5 win over Shattuck, 3-0 over Sonics, 3-0 over Onin, and 3-0 over Light. Like, that is a streak of top players that you're taking out right there. Super impressive. Then he ends up losing in a Game 5 to Dormiggy, and Dormiggy's got Zomba's number. I do think that Rod is pretty good against Min, but they've played 3 times, and Dormiggy has come out on top every single time, so massive props to him for that one. And then Onin manages to get their revenge in the loser side, 3-1 over Zomba. I do think Rob is pretty good against Steve. You have that Nair. You have really strong advantage state against the character. Obviously, side B is an option that you can use against Minecart and Anvil, though it is a little committal. If it works, they are just going to die. But on the other end, as the Steve player, you know, you get to hit Rob, and then it's like the most fun you've ever had playing a video game. It's just a big robot that goes on an absolute ride. So trades sets with Onin at this event, but looking really good from Zomba. He's also usually the player that when we go to Japan does the best of the Americans. At least he has in the past, so pretty high hopes for him coming into kagaribi. I absolutely think he's going to perform at that event. In 2nd place, you're going to have Onin, and prior to Battle of BC, Onin had not gotten top 8 at a major since Gommel, so there was almost a whole year of just off period where Onin wasn't able to get in. Lots of 9th places, just barely not making it to the place that they were aiming for. Finally does it at Battle of BC, and just like that, momentum on your side, the ceiling is broken, and they explode at this event. Game 5 win over Atada, 3-1 win over MK Leo, 3-1 win over Kurama. Ends up losing in a 3-0 to Zomba, but that matchup is difficult, as we've established. Gets that Game 5 win over Wrath, and I think that matchup is really difficult for Steve, so massive ups to them for winning that one. Again, beats MK Leo in the top 8, 3-1. 3-0's Kiarash, 3-0's Light, gets their run back on Zomba, 3-1, then ends up losing to Dormiggy in Grand Finals 3-1. And honestly, that's like one of the worst players that you can get in Grand Finals, especially as a Steve player, because as I said earlier, I think Onin is really good at playing to his opponent's outs. Like, he knows what does this Rob player want to go. They want to nair me, they want to gyro me. What does this Fox player want to do? They want to dash attack me, they up tilt me, they want to like grab me, especially if it's Light. Onin knows what their opponent, is going for, and they play exactly to that outcome. Now, I also have to bring up the topic of planking. Not that Onin was the only one planking, but it's definitely something that we need to talk about. And I do think it's something that definitely needs to be banned. And it's also something that's like really easy to ban. I don't know why TOs aren't doing it. Just like, hey, if you are a Steve player, you are not allowed to mine under the stage. That's all it would take to ban planting. Just implement that rule, planking, implement that rule right there. Instantly, the issue is gone. I don't know why they haven't done it. I do think it's really bad for the game. Planking in general is just like especially lame as a technique, but for the best character in the game to be the one implementing it, to get more resources as well, like it's not even just a stalling technique, like yeah, absolutely that needs to go. But on the topic of planking, you gotta have good block placement, and I still think that Onin, out of all of the Steves, has the best block placement, and that is why they continue to find success. They're just so quick to pull up like the wall of China instantly. You're trying to approach me, you're not trying to approach me anymore. Now you gotta deal with this mini game. They're just so fluid and so fast with their block placements that I think it's the reason why they are the front runner for Steve, at least at this event. Now, who is going to be the best Steve player in 2025? I have no idea. Again, I think that Syrup is most likely going to be the front runner of that by the end of the year. He's going to pull ahead, but with Anand performing like crazy at this event and with Akola not really performing, it's honestly up in the air for all three of those players to take that title. Carmelo won his first major as well this weekend, so maybe he needs to be added to that conversation. It's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, but regardless of any of that, if any of this Steve discussion, if you think planking should be banned or not, it definitely should be. Anand played amazing at this event, had the run of, not a lifetime, they've obviously done before, they won a Smash Gun, but the run of a long time. It's been a while since we've seen Anand play to this level, and honestly, I don't think we're going to have to wait much longer for the next one. And our final competitor, the big winner of Level Up Expo 2025, is going to be none other than Doramigi, who's got a 2-0 over Caden. Game 5 win over Deathspade. Shouts to Deathspade for making it that close. I do think Bayo was really well in the matchup, but still, the guy won the event, so making it that close at all is very impressive. 3-0 over Beastly, 3-1 over Capitancito, 3-0 over Spargo. Game 5 win over Kia Rash, which again, shouts to Kia Rash for making it that close, and a Game 5 win over Zomba to get themselves or himself into winner side grand finals, where he ends up taking out on and only dropping a single game. And Doramiki is the embodiment of what Min Min should be. He understands how you're actually supposed to play this character. Because when people look at Min Min, they think, oh, this is a lame character. I'm supposed to stay on the other side of the stage and just do nothing and wait till the opponent comes to me and throw things at them while they're approaching me and hope that something clips them. That's not how Doramiki plays Min Min. He is the most aggressive Min Min player I have ever seen. He's up in your face. He is forcing you to make a mistake because Doramiki knows if he hits you with a neutral air or a down tilt, he's just going to kill you. He is actually just going to explode you. He's not afraid to rip that up smash as an anti-air as well. I implore you, I know it's Steve against Min Min. Watch that last game of Grand Finals. It's probably on the screen right now. Doramiki just goes for some insane stuff. He does not care. He plays with his chest, and he always hits his conversions. And this is the scariest thing you could have in a Min Min player. Because, yeah, he's probably going to lose more interactions than the average Min Min would because he's just taking a lot more interactions than the average Min Min would. But he's also just ending his opponent's stock in like 2 or 3 interactions versus the normal Min Min like 7 or 8 where you're slowly whittling people away. No, if Doramiki hits you, he's ensuring that you're off stage. And once you're off stage, he's not throwing arms and just like stopping you from coming back. No, he is physically going out there with that neutral air. That neutral air clips, then he hits you with a second forward air. Or he does a second neutral air and just continues pressuring you off stage. Doramigi is the heat-seeking missile of Smash Ultimate. You are sent off stage, you are not going to make it back because he's not going to sit on the ledge and watch you make it back. He's going to actively try and prevent you. Every single Min Min player in the world needs to take a lot of notes out of this guy's book. He is incredible. Massive win for him. He's so young as well. I think he's like 15 or 16 at this point. So going into kagaribi, going into Smash 6 especially, this is someone that you need to have your eyes out on. So big props to Doramigi for winning this event. He looked amazing while doing it. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sport. It's been absolutely unreal. As anything I left out, got wrong, or if you want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there. Use code PROOFBLOCK, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.